Today on the copyright stuff. Lights, camera, action. Wait, who turned out the lights? It was the test audiences. They are the ones who caused the case of Thomas versus Hollywood. What was at stake was a valuable guardian for the #1 tank engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. Today, we will explore the origins of this hit kids TV brand of Thomas and Friends, as well as how its first movie, Thomas and the Magic Railroad, was a movie that was meant to be. We experience a moment's darkness and silence on the big white screen in front of us. A screen that is about to come to life to tell us our story. Then, here, there, the darkness is illuminated by flickering rails of light, and we hear closer, closer, a rhythmic rumble, train wheels, louder, louder. We are curious, excited, filled with anticipation, and soon we hear a wonderful, hissing sound of a whistle. It's all around us, and we see images one upon the other, a splash of blue, a dash of gray, a little bit of yellow, and then of red. They sweep across the darkness and across the flashes of light, and are gone through the tunnel, and away. It's as if we have seen the pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. We cannot identify the complete picture until we are outside the tunnel, and there is the back view of a little blue train engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome, speeding along on its journey in a cloud of steam. This is our first full glimpse of Thomas, at home, on the island of Sodor. These words were written in a script by Britt Allcroft, dated May 19, 1999. Some children seeing this movie for the first time will either be very curious as to how it all works and how the movie was made, but others could care less and just be an odd storyline. Unfortunately, one of the first audiences who saw this disagreed and, in a way, helped ruin the movie. As bold as the statement as it is, it forces you to look deeper into the production of this film. But first, let's take a look at the origins of this film. According to the About section on the Thomas and Friends website, in 1917, Reverend Wilbur Awdry was just a young boy when he lay awake to the sound of the Great Western Railway. This made him think of talking trains. Fast forward to 1943, Wilbur was married to a woman named Margaret, and their son Christopher was confined to bed with the measles. Wilbur began to tell his son stories about 3 steam engines. When Christopher pressured him to tell the story with specific details, he wrote them down on scraps of paper. His wife discovered these scraps and urged him to publish the stories, and he eventually did. The hit UK book series known as the Railway series was born. Thomas, inspired by one of Christopher's models, was eventually added to the series. After finishing a documentary about trains, British television producer Britt Allcroft met Reverend Wilbur Awdry after coming across his books from her childhood. Allcroft dreamt of adapting the stories to television, and in 1984, Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was broadcast in the UK for the first time. According to Soda Island fan site, Alcroft eventually agreed to bring the series to the US, and Shining Time Station was born.
Funding for this program was provided in part by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the financial support of viewers like you.
Reach for the speed, reach for the whistle, go where the rail may run. Reach for the words, reach for the story, follow the rainbow sun. To a shining time station, where dreams can come true, waiting there for you.
This show had human sequences at a train station, where a magical character named Mr. Conductor would tell them stories from Thomas the Tank Engine and friends.
Here we go. Thomas is a tank engine who lives at a big station on the island of Sodor. He's a cheeky little engine with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome.
In 1989, Shining Time Station debuted to an American audience. Shining Time Station was very successful in its day. After its 65-episode run, a series of 1-hour family specials were produced, and the show also entered syndication, running on Fox Family and Nick Jr. One thing that was in discussion with Rick Siegelkow, one of Shining Time Station's co-creators, was the possibility of a Shining Time Station movie. In Rick's interview with Soda Island fan site, he says, the earlier film treatment had a circus train coming to Shining Time, and an evil ringmaster kidnapped Mr. Conductor. As I remember it, Thomas and the other trains had to come to his rescue. Over the course of the story, a circus girl became friends with the Shining Time kids and overcame her fear of horses to become a circus stunt rider. And in one memorable scene, Schemer was shot from cannon. However, the other co-creator, Britt Alcroft, did not like the idea of a Shining Time Station movie. She thought that a crossover movie with the original series was better. And that's exactly what she pitched when she was approached by Barry London. Barry London was, at the time, the vice chairman of Paramount Pictures, and his daughter then was only 3 years old. She loved the show, and Barry asked Britt to come up with an idea for a feature-length film for Thomas the Tank Engine. On February 27, 1996, Britt Alcroft signed a deal with Paramount Pictures to write the screenplay with the working title Thomas and the Magic Railroad. It was stated that it would be filmed in Shepperton Studios in the United States. But as time went on, things started falling out of place. It was Barry London's pet project, so when he left Paramount Pictures later that year, Thomas and the Magic Railroad was shelved. Britt Alcroft loved the idea very much that she began to see a way of producing the film independently. For starters, she heard about a tax incentives for filmmakers at the Isle of Man while vacationing in Scotland. She visits the Isle a few days later, and she is impressed by its beauty. This becomes the future home to Shining Time Station. Later, Barry London re-enters Hollywood as the chairman and CEO of Destination Films. As such, in 1999, Barry London contacts Britt, and Destination Films is off to the races with the production of the movie Thomas and the Magic Railroad. And it turns out that Britt Alcroft actually wrote an amazing screenplay for Thomas's debut in Hollywood. And one production draft was indeed completed on May 19, 1999. The film Thomas and the Magic Railroad was even filmed accordingly, but it suffered at the hands of the test audience who viewed the director's cut. They claimed the voice cast just didn't seem fit, from the two old taxi driver John Bellis and Michael Angeles, as well as the very scary Keith Scott. John Bellis would have been a rags to riches true story, minus the rags. When he was accidentally discovered by Britt and scouting locations to film the movie. At the time, he was a full-time firefighter and a part-time taxi driver on the Isle of Man. He was called to pick up Britt at the airport. He was expecting it just to be a routine pickup. But when Britt realized that his voice was perfect for Thomas, after just muttering a few words, he called him up and he accepted the part.
This summer, take a magical trip to a world unlike any other. An enchanting place where adventure is only a whistle away. Destination Films presents Alec Baldwin, Peter Fonda, Mara Wilson, and Thomas.
Little engines can do big things.
Things are gonna change around here, puffball.
Thomas and the Magic Railroad. Rolling into theaters everywhere, July 2000.
This story was even recorded on the BBC, that he would be voicing Thomas in the movie.
The tale of Thomas, Percy, Gordon and other engines, the central characters in Reverend Awdry's children's stories about a train yard, is to be made into a multi-million-pound film. It will feature the voices of Hollywood greats such as Peter Fonda and Alec Baldwin, alongside that of an ordinary fireman from the Isle of Man. John Bellis, who's also a taxi driver, unexpectedly steamed into the lead role. He did what he thought was a routine pickup from the airport. In the event, it turned out to be an audition for the star part.
It's fantastic. Everybody, I'm a bit shell-shocked still, to be honest with you. I've got to keep pinching myself, realising that it's happened. All the lads at work, they're really supportive. The management at work are really supportive, and they're all going around singing Thomas the Tank tunes.
Filming for Thomas and the Magic Railroad begins in Peel on the Isle of Man next month, with the film set to come out in a year's time. By then, John Bellis will have returned to his work as a fire officer on the island. Rachel Ellison, BBC News.
But sad to say, the test audience caused them to take the cut due to him, as well as Michael Angeles, who was the UK narrator for the series, made the train sound too old. Voice actors wouldn't be the only ones being cut, as the test audience deemed the main antagonist, P.T. Boomer, who was portrayed by Doug Lennox, as too frightening for children. In the final movie, Diesel 10 was the one to blame for the lady being crashed to near destruction.
She escaped me once before. As long as she exists, so do the others. But if she can be destroyed... Destroyed? Did you say destroyed?
And Bernard Stone, as we all know, was trying to restore her to life, but to no avail. However, in the original cut, that evil deed was, in fact, done by Boomer.
Used up all her coal. He made her go too fast. And then he crashed her. And I brought her here. I tried my best to fix her up. But I've never been able to make up for the mistake I made. And I've never been able to bring her to life, to make her steam. Hatch, she's as precious as gold.
Described in the script as a drifter through choice in that circumstances, he didn't believe in magic, and was jealous of Bernard's relationship with his now deceased wife, Tasha. He crashed Lady as an act of revenge, and he returns about 40 years later as a dark and bitter character. In the script, The movie has more of a fantasy feel than in the released movie, with magic causing things falling apart at Shining Time more than on Sodor.
My dream, it's coming true. My universe is starting to crumble.
As such, Boomer was depicted as a threat to the magic. Meanwhile, Diesel 10 had no knowledge of Lady or a lost engine, and the engines being alive was just as unexplained as in the Railway series. Diesel 10 was just a secondary villain who bullied Thomas and his steam engine friends in Mr. Conductor. He saw steam engines as a nuisance and outdated, and that Sodor needed diesel domination. That's where his claw Pinchy, whose term was Neil Krone's invention and not in the script, comes into play. In fact, the parts where the magic is seen falling apart on Sodor, like in the viaduct scene when it's falling apart, was not included in the original script, when it was added later in post-production when Boomer was cut. Now, one thing that's important to bring up are the characters Cranky the Crane and George the Steamroller. First off, they were included in the script that was dated May 19, 1999, and models were made for them for this movie. George had a major role as one of Diesel 10's adversaries, while Cranky only made 2 non-speaking appearances in the whole script. However, none of their scenes were ever filmed. Their parts were cut out in later revisions of the script, and while Cranky was briefly on the set, George was never taken out of storage. The only character who was cut due to the test screening of the director's cut was the main antagonist, P.T. Boomer. Not only did the loss of roles use up time and money, but also several rewrites had to be made. With only one of the 2 villains, Diesel 10, still in play, the only solution at the last minute was to add magic to the living engines created by the Reverend Wilbert Awdry. Magic was never intended to be the life source of Thomas and his friends in either Awdry's world or in Britt's original movie, and the film critics hated adding magic to Thomas's big premiere flick.
Diesel knows that the lost engine in the legend really exists.
What engine? What legend?
Of an engine whose magic makes her more powerful than Diesel will ever be. That's why he wants to find her.
Then we'd better find her first.
And Diesel is after the lost engine.
And if he finds her, I fear that will destroy us all.
What, even an engine as big as me?
Yes, Gordon, even you.
And the rewrites themselves are also despised by film critics. Without P.T. Boomer in the movie, the film critics, especially those in the UK who weren't familiar with Shining Time Station, said adding human sequences at Shining Time made the storyline too confusing. They, of course, had no knowledge of what Britt Allcroft went through at the studio, but they did blame her as writer and director for the film's box office failure. Even though the movie's failure at the box office wasn't Britt's fault, the lack of big profit caused her to remove her own position in her own company. It was later acquired by Hit Entertainment, who owns Thomas today. By changing Thomas to CGI instead of models, Hit Entertainment decided that it would save money and update the show for a new generation of viewers.
You'll be laughing on the other side of your boilers soon, city steamers.
Yes.
It was only in 2007 when Sodor Island Forum's member and moderator Troublesome Truck discovered a script for the movie dated May 19, 1999. It was purchased, like mine, from the site www.scriptfly.com, and it is still available. After contacting Britt about the differences between the film and the script, the director's cut was finally revealed. It even had rediscovered interest in YouTube in 2009 when the original, uncut version of the chase scene was leaked. It happened when former Destination Films employee and current media arts teacher in Canada had the scene for instructional use only. An unsuspecting user, Joy87, uploaded the clip covered with the score of Dark City. It was for a film assignment about musical score experimentation. He had no interest in Thomas or the director's cut, which is apparent in its title, Thomas the Tank Engine vs. Dark City. Expecting it to only draw a few public views and for the teacher to see it, he instead got a ton of Thomas fans asking, or should I say pestering, him to upload the entire director's cut, and likely a good scolding from the media arts teacher. As a result, he took the footage down and later denied ever uploading it. Although it was re-uploaded on several other people's accounts. This mysterious behavior caused YouTube user Unknown Thomas Fan 1 to start the infamous rumor that it was found from the Lloydminster Public Library. The rights to the director's cut of Thomas and the Magic Railroad, as well as its final cut, are up in arms. Most fans believe the movie belongs to Hit Entertainment with the rest of the franchise, but it really belongs to Sony Pictures Entertainment, as they acquired Destination Films in 2007. However, one person from within Sony I contacted over the phone said, and I quote, "The studio is Destination Films, which no longer exists." Someone who I also called from Sony Picture Archival Vaults said he wouldn't know who to contact within Sony for its release. However, Hit Entertainment does list their movie in their catalog. Yet again, Sony Pictures has started to put content ID claims on YouTube videos featuring the movie. Also, whether it's the big release fans have been signing for, or the final cut remastered to Blu-ray, people back at Soda Island forums are wondering if BitAllCrop herself would have to be involved. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Soda Island has since come across another barrier in trying to get the director's cut released. It has to do with the musical score of the movie. Hummy Man, who wrote the score of the movie, did not write a single note until after Doug Lennox and everyone else was cut. Therefore, the movie that was screened to the test audience employed something known as a temp track. A temp track is just as it sounds, a temporary soundtrack that is used for the scenes of a movie. It is usually put together by the director to give the composer a general feel for how the movie should sound in a specific scene. The temp track is made up of different pieces from scores of many different movies. This further screws up copyright issues in the movie. The two options to get it released or screened are to get permission from the copyright holders on the different scores used in the director's cut, or to ditch the whole temp track and have a new score composed for the movie, or even remaster Hummy Man's score in the proper places. Both options are equally expensive. One would require obtaining a license from various parties, and if one says no, then the temp track cannot be used at all. Meanwhile, the other requires having to have someone compose and record a new score. Given that this wasn't a big success in the box office anyway, I don't know why a studio would want to spend money on something they don't know would sell. And that assumes that we can get past the issues that I mentioned beforehand before we even think about the temp track. As you can see, the rights to the movie are up in arms. To me, Sony has no interest in the director's cut or its release. Many fans, both young and old, want the release. Even Brit is trying to think of a way to release it or even screen it to the public. So besides all the obstacles involved in its release, who owns the right copyrights are still unknown to this day. The fact that each opportunity for its release goes down the drain as time marches on is both saddening and motivational. Only time will tell if the right version will ever be seen to the public as copyrights grow into an equal obstacle in its release.
It's Thomas. You're the leader. Come on. Okay. 2, there 4, there 6, there 8. Shunting trucks and hauling freight. Red and green and brown and blue. They're the youthful crew. That's you. All with different roles to play. Round Sidmouth, Shetton, far away. Now Stanley's joined this friendly pack. But who's this coming down the track? The list is long, it never ends. James and Percy, Huff and Puff, and Emily, she knows her stuff. Henry, Edward, what a pair. Toby, like I say, he's square. Gordon, Thunders down the line. Everyone's a friend of mine. That's right. So team is Bertie, the really useful crew. She's my number one, shining in the morning sun, working hard but having fun. Thomas, you're the leader. Thomas, you're the leader.
Exciting news! For each part of the copyright stuff, I'll be starting a campaign for a goal that is to help right the wrong that is discussed in the particular episode for that day. half letter drive and half petition, and worked using a simple Google form that, upon submission, emails a template to the campaign's target with your comments added, as if you sent it yourself. No Googling blah 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 contact info. It's already coded to do that for you. Furthermore, it also will post your name and comments to a Tumblr blog, just like an online petition. Today's goal is to contact Hit Entertainment, which is now owned by Mattel, as well as Sony Pictures Entertainment, for the release of the director's cut of Thomas and the Magic Railroad. This is especially useful as Sword Art Island announced a while ago that they've abandoned their petition, especially considering that one person has signed it multiple times, thus invalidating it. For more details of this and other letter drives, see bit.ly/copyrightmail, and to see the template, go to bit.ly/tatmrtemplate, and to sign this petition and email Sony and Hit, go to magicrailroadletterDrive.tumblr.com/form-sign. The links to all of these places are in the description. Do it for the justice of Britt Alcroft and Thomas himself. And next time, we will explore a semi-wiki approach to television that started in the 1970s in Boston. See you next time.